Hello everyone and welcome back to Isekai World. Today I really want to finish this series. What if Luffy ate Pika Pika no Mi instead of Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika? And this might be the last episode for this series because in this episode we are going to talk about the battle between Kaido and Straw Hat Pirates. In the original timeline, Luffy fought against Kaido and won because of his devil fruit. In all honesty, Luffy was not even close to defeating Kaido without others' help, and now he's going to face Kaido one on one and he had to win. And unlike Big Mom, Kaido's attacks are really strong. So without the endurance of his Hito Itonomi model Nika, it might not be possible for him to win. So I'm really excited how this battle will go and what kind of construct can Luffy make to defeat Kaido. So without further ado, let's get started. And Luffy is currently traveling with his buddies to Wano Kuni, and because they did not meet Kinemon or Momonosuke in their journey, they had no emotional connection with Wano until Luffy got separated from the ship while they were climbing on the waterfall, and just then he met a little girl who was kind enough to give him some rice despite her being hungry in her birthday. And so he decided to defeat Kaido and free Wano Kuni from the rule of Kaido. And while he was going to defeat Kaido, he met Kaido's son or slash daughter Yamato, and they became friends because of the existence of Ace and also because of her goal of defeating Kaido. So after that, we finally have a matchup against King versus Zoro, Queen versus Sanji, Jack versus Law, and Kaido versus Straw Hat Luffy. And right now, this battle is going to be ridiculous because Kaido is not going easy on Luffy. He's going to start with his Thunder Bagua and his attacks are going to be devastating. But Luffy is still a user of Future Sight and Logia Devil Fruit, so he could easily dodge his attacks. The only problem being Luffy not being able to dodge the effect of Conqueror's entanglement or Conqueror's coating. So despite being able to dodge Kaido's attack, he would still get affected by Kaido's power, and because he is not actively trying to defend himself, these effects would injure him to certain extent, and Luffy would have no choice but to use his trump card against Kaido, and he immediately uses it without even hesitation. He enters awakened form, and with this he creates a massive domain of light around him. This domain fully engulfing the entire Onigashima into the domain of light, where he could create any kind of constructs of light. So the first thing he creates are massive two swords that are coated with Conqueror's haki and advanced armament haki, and were able to injure Kaido. So with these swords he slashes at Kaido, and Kaido simply replies with his Thunder Bagua, and this time he uses much more advanced version of Thunder Bagua, that is Ragnarok. And when he uses this attack, he creates a massive explosion of energy that destroys the ground beneath them, and Luffy had no choice but to let go of his light constructs, and he once again rises toward the sky and he creates a massive fist made out of light that he slams against Kaido. Once again, Kaido being a mythical dragon, he flies toward the sky with his dragon form and slams that light fist with his face and that face is covered in armament haki and cockroach coating. Okay, when they collide, it creates powerful explosion of energy, but it was not enough to destroy the ground beneath them. So the Onigashima was still safe, and Luffy now had to block Kaido on its path to move towards Luffy, and his fist was made out of light. Okay, so it was not overwhelming against Kaido, but it was still able to stop Kaido for a moment when Luffy raises his another hand and creates another sword made out of light and slashes Kaido on his neck. This time, Luffy gaining an upper hand, attacking before Kaido could react. His conqueror's coated light sword slashes Kaido's neck, that is in a dragon form. So Kaido was not able to dodge it properly, and it ended up hurting him. So while this battle was going on, there were other battles that were happening as well, because Yamato was still not attacking any beast pirate, and also waiting for his chance to fight against Kaido. Zoro had to face King all by himself. Sanji had to face Queen all by himself, and Law obviously had to face Jack all by himself. And as they started fighting, uh, King was getting upper hand against Zoro, but Zoro was not going down that easily. He had learned advanced armament and advanced observation haki in his previous battle, so he was able to make a lot of attacks worth it. And even though they were not able to injure King, they were still able to land on King and deplete his stamina, because King was a Lunarian and he was able to heal himself with those flames. So Zoro uses his advanced armament to destroy King from inside, while also using Future Sight to dodge most of King's attack and attacking him with all of his strength. King was not a pushover as well. He was using his most powerful attacks such as Flame Dragon. That was really powerful. It was powerful enough for Zoro to consider using Asura, and Zoro does consider using Asura, but it was his last move, last ditch effort, like last move, that he would not use that easily. So he still uses his other attacks to fight against King, and during this time he realizes another force that was slowly awakening inside of him. He was not sure what kind of force this was, but he knew that it was something called Conqueror's Haki, and he was not awake. He was awakened, like he had awakened Conqueror's Haki, but he had not reached the level of Luffy where he could coat himself with Conqueror's Haki and fight against his enemy. So during his training with Rayleigh, he managed to awaken it, but he could not use it proficiently like Luffy. And right now he had that plan. He had a plan to advance his Conqueror's Haki to Conqueror's coating. So he tried it in this battle with King. He tried using advanced Conquerors, though it might not be as easy as it seemed. Luffy was able to do it because Luffy was a genius, like he was in and out genius. So Zoro had to come up with a skill, a sword technique that allows him to coat his Conqueror's Haki with armament Haki and attack. And no better skill than Asura. There was literally no better skill than Asura that could do such thing. So he decided to use this trick. And just while his battle was going on, Sanji versus Queen was also happening, and Queen as usual was funny and also using all of Jarma's tricks against Sanji, and he was quite dangerous with his attacks. And because he hurt innocent girl, Sanji was flared up. He had already awakened his body, his monster body, but he had not controlled it. Like he could not enter that state on his own. It could only be entered when he is emotionally challenged. So right now, when Queen hurt an innocent girl, he was emotionally challenged. His emotions could not be controlled, and right now he finally changed into a monster himself. Like his eyebrows changed and his flames became blue, and at this moment his Jarma constitution was completely awakened. Jarma body was completely awakened, and he could go toe to toe against Queen, despite her being able to use all of Jarma's attacks and as well as having her own joint ancient fruit. So when the battle between them continued, Law, on the other hand, was almost on the verge of defeating Jack. Jack was no big deal for Law. He had powerful attacks that Jack could not defend with his armament haki alone. So Law was just very close to defeating Jack, but it was not enough. Like he had to find some other way to defeat him, because even Gamma Knife did injure Jack, but due to his immense endurance, it was not enough. So he needed much powerful attacks, and at this moment, Law could not help but remember an advice that he got from Luffy when he asked him about awakening of his devil fruit. So at this moment he decided, he knew that this was the moment where he is going to push himself to the limits and awaken his devil fruit. From Luffy, what he learned was that awakening his devil fruit was not about simply leveling up his devil fruit or making it stronger. It is about understanding the essence of his devil fruit. For example, for joint devil fruit, it is to understand the wild nature of their animals, and also the core strength of that animal. And for Logia, such as himself, Luffy comprehended the essence of light, that is creating a domain of light where every single light particles can be easily controlled by him. He is not transforming the surrounding into light. He is controlling the light around him and turning it into a domain where his own power can amplify. So Law, who knew the trick of awakening devil fruit, finally realized using his devil fruit around his sword, the essence of devil fruit, instead of making a room bigger or anything else. He control the room, power of room in around his sword, and like an essence forming around his sword, he created a sword that was a room itself. So he could turn his sword into anything he wanted. He was the master of his sword, and at this moment he elongated his sword and he pierced through Jack body, and when he pierced through the Jack body, he released power of electrification and shocked Jack from inside out. This caused Jack to receive an immense damage, even more than Gamma Knife. So this caused him to fall down into his knees, but he was not done yet. So what Law did was he simply created a silence domain around Jack, and then he released the shock to its maximum level. After that, Jack finally could not hold it out anymore, and his powerful sound could not go out of the domain, so nobody was there to help him as well, and finally Jack was down. With that, the only remaining were Queen, King, and Kaido. Of course, there were Tobiropo and other beast pirates, but they were getting slaughtered or rather destroyed by Straight Pirates rather quickly, and also with the help of Hot Pirate and sometime simple help from Yamato, they were able to defeat most of Ropo and also the Beast Pirates. The only remaining ones were Alti and Black Maria. Except for them, everyone else was already down. So while they were fighting, the battle between Sanji and Queen also started to end as Sanji became furious of Queen's behavior and used his strongest attack to defeat Queen. But King and Zoro's battle was still going on. Even though Zoro was figuring out how to use his cockroach coating properly and not unconsciously, he was still having hard time fighting against an opponent that could recover from any kind of attack. So he still had to find the weakness of King, and this is what he did. He found the weakness, and whenever flame goes off, he could attack King and cause some serious damage. So he was also finding for an opportunity to defeat King. As time went on, the battle between Kaido and Luffy became destructive. Luffy, in his giant mech armor created out of light, against Kaido, who was in his hybrid form. His giant mech armor was not only coated with armament but also conquerors, and the most important thing is that Luffy himself had created some kind of strange stream of power that he was receiving from the sun. Bastard, aren't you a Logia fruit user? How can you do such thing? This kind of recovery is not even possible with joint fruit users. Kaido asked with a hoarse voice, as he did not believe that Luffy was getting recovered so easily after taking attacks from him. His strongest attacks could easily destroy Luffy, but he was getting recovered rather quickly because of the sunlight from the sky. So Kaido had to create clouds above him so that the sunlight would not pass, but Luffy still had a massive light domain around him that could constantly fill him and cure him. So after seeing him recover so many times, Kaido could not figure out how a Logia devil fruit, which was just a light fruit, could do such a thing. At this moment, Luffy simply replied, because I understood the power of my devil fruit. My power is not about just creating light, it is about controlling light as well. So light is not just a kind of power that is destructive, it is also the power that provides life to the plants around us. So if plants could grow because of this light, why couldn't I, a light man who had the perfect control over this light? And when he said that, Luffy jumped into the sky, and with his massive construct, he slammed two of his fists against Kaido, coated in Conqueror's haki. Kaido replied with his drunken Thunder Bagua as they collided for a moment into stalemate, and Luffy retreated several meters, using his light powers to recover himself once more. And Kaido was getting mad at this because despite being a mythical joint, he could not recover faster than Luffy, which was an insult to a mythical joint fruit user. So he was getting enraged and his attacks were getting more destructive, but Luffy was calm. He was trying to figure out a way, a power that could literally kill this person in front of him, at least defeat him. So after a lot of thinking, a lot of collision, he finally came up with a solution. He constructed 3 or 4 massive swords that dug deeper into the Onigashima land, and then massive chains of light appeared and bind Kaido at the middle. Kaido tried to struggle and destroy those light-based constructs, but they were not easy to be destroyed. They were coated with armament haki and conquerors as well, as he did not understand how Luffy was able to merge his conqueror's haki into an attack that was not even connected to him. So he could not help but ask, why are you able to do it? Why can you connect your devil fruit and the haki so perfectly? Who the hell are you? As he asked, his voice became louder and louder, as he did not understand just what kind of person Luffy was. And Luffy simply replied, I am a man, I am a light man who wants to travel the world without any kind of train. And I am going to be the pirate king, the freest man in this world. So I got to defeat you right now, right here. As for your question, this is how I do. He showed as he released armament haki into the tip of his finger, and that armament haki transformed into the entire domain around him. Yes, his light domain, the domain that surrounds him, was fully coated in armament haki. So as long as he can as long as he can output his armament haki into the domain, the any light construct around him can be fused with it. So it was not just armament haki though. Whenever he attacks, he releases his conqueror's coating as well, and this conqueror's coating is released into his domain first. Then through his domain, it is released into his construct, which allows him to use his conqueror's coating in any of his attacks, even if they are not connected to him. So after his Kaido properly saw this, he could not help but ask, how were you able to develop your devil fruit so much? You only have been in sea for a year or even less. How are you able to do this? And when he asked this, Luffy simply replied, although I did travel into the seas for less than a year, but I have gained my devil fruit quite a long time ago. I had practiced my devil fruit for a long time, and I have been trying to understand the essence of my devil fruit. You do not understand what devil fruit truly means. It is our desire, it is what we want, and we can manipulate it, we can change it according to our will. So what I want to do can be done with this power, as long as it does not break the rule of the power itself. So this is not just the power of my devil fruit, it is the power of my imagination. But in this world, just having the imagination is not enough. You also need the willpower to conquer, to defend, and to see through the world. And this is where my willpower comes in. At this moment, he raises both of his hands into the sky, creating a massive hammer. This hammer was the size of the entire Onigashima. He covered the entire hammer with his armament haki and coated it with his conqueror's haki. This is not just the power of my imagination, this is also the power of my willpower. And he said, he slams his hammer toward Kaido, who has been imprisoned by those light chains, and Kaido does manage to break it. He transforms into flame dragon and rises toward the sky, trying to take that attack head on, while Luffy uses his power to its maximum potential. The temperature of the top of the hammer was almost reaching the temperature of the sun. It was so hot that even Kaido, who had transformed into flame dragon, could feel the heat coming out of that light construct. As he slams into the light construct, the hammer slams onto him and to collide for a long time. Kaido tries to bite off the hammer, while hammer tries to pound him towards Onigashima, and it does. It pounds him so deep into the ground that he reaches the magma under the Onigashima, and as he reaches that place his skin starts burning and his entire body was gets on fire. Of course we do not care about the state of Kaido for now. So after defeating Kaido, Luffy's body suddenly starts falling down. His body was hot, extremely hot, but because of the power of light he was healing himself, and that did not come out of nowhere. He was exerting his stamina to its utmost limits, which is causing him a lot of problem. So he was quite tired, extremely tired to be exact, but thankfully before he falls into the ground, Yamato catches him, and then they started banquet obviously after they recover. As for what happened to Zoro and King's fight, you may ask. Well, that's simple. Zoro is going to use Asura to defeat King, and there is no way that King would recover, especially when his fire is out, because that's what Zoro had been figuring out for so long. So after he defeats King, the entire battle ends, and finally Luffy and his crew starts a banquet, and all of them celebrate for a long time. After that, they finally leave Wano Kuni with Yamato, of course. Before they left Wano Kuni, they did give the authority of Wano Kuni to its rightful honor, and just before they left, Marine Admiral by the name of Green Bull arrives, and when he arrives, Luffy and his crew decimates him. The only way he survived was because of his own devil fruit that allow him to fly away. But even so, he was so damaged that he could barely fly away. And after that, Luffy gave his flag to Wano Kuni, and they finally leave Wano and venture into the grand new world once again. And after this, I'm not going to talk about their journey, because we do not know how it plays out, and we do not know what kind of power Luffy is going to face. We do not know if there is a higher level to Haki and Devil Fruit, like Second Awakening. The only reason why Luffy seems so overpowered in this version of this story is because he understood, or rather I changed the way his devil fruit should have worked. At least healing was not supposed to be his power, and we haven't seen that from Kizaru. And more importantly, he also did not seem to have, or rather any devil fruit user except for Law seemed to have a domain after awakening. Of course, Doflamingo and Katakuri could manipulate the ground, and Logia user could turn the ground into elements, but that was it. There was no such thing as extra power, while in the case of Luffy, he was just using his light construct with his imagination, using the light to create anything he wants. Unlike just some sword or laser lights, he was able to create some powerful construct, and he was also able to merge his devil fruit power and his haki perfectly, which allows him to create devastating effects. So this is how his life would play out if he had Pika Pika no Mi instead of Hito Hito no Mi. Of course, there would be some differences. For example, if he had started without haki, obviously there would be a lot of differences, such as learning observation haki and armament haki with from his opponent. Advanced armament haki, obviously I'm talking about him learning future sight from Katakuri, and learning armament haki and conqueror's haki from Kaido. So except for that, nothing really changed that much, and I think this plays out quite well. This should be the life of Luffy with Pika Pika no Mi, and with his imagination and willpower, I don't think there would be any difference. Luffy would still be a free-spirited person even if he does not have a devil fruit like Hito Itonomi Model Nika, he would still have a lot of endurance because of his imagination and a little bit of modification, obviously, and he would still have quite a powerful talent in learning haki and merging his haki with his devil fruit perfectly. And with that, guys, I'm going to end this series. In this episode, I'm not going to talk about Egghead Island or war against the world government or fight against Blackbeard. Thank you for watching this entire series and joining me into finding out what Luffy's fate would play out after he eats Pika Pika no Mi, and see you in the next series.